I know what people think when they hear my name. They think of that girl, the viral one, the one with the sister and the cheating husband, and the infamous cabin video. They think they know the whole story. But they don't. They only know the pieces I let them see. So if I'm going to tell this, I want it to be from the very beginning. The real beginning. Not the night the video dropped. Not the day I walked out on Brian. But years before that, when I first started ignoring the little signs. When I gave people the benefit of the doubt because I didn't want to look paranoid. When I thought loyalty ran both ways. My name is Hailey Carter, and this is not a story about a woman scorned. It's about a woman who saw everything and chose to wait. You see, revenge isn't loud. It's not immediate. It's not what you scream in someone's face during an argument. It's the silence, the stillness, the pretending. It's what you plan in the moments when they think you're broken. That's when it really begins. I was 29 when everything exploded, but the truth is, it had been simmering for almost a decade. Brian and I met in college. He was charming, ambitious, and the kind of guy who looked you in the eye and made you feel like you were the only person in the room. I fell fast. So did Alyssa, apparently. But back then, she was just my kid sister. She was 17, still in high school, still borrowing my clothes and asking me how to do her eyeliner. I never thought I had to worry about her. That was my first mistake. By the time Brian and I got married, Alyssa had grown into a stunning, confident woman who turned heads everywhere she went. People used to joke that we looked like twins, but she always had that little extra sparkle, the one that made men double take. I noticed the way Brian started looking at her, but I told myself it was in my head. You don't accuse your husband of staring at your sister unless you're damn sure. And I wasn't. Not then. So I buried it. I buried a lot of things over the years. The texts that didn't make sense. The nights he came home late. The lipstick I knew wasn't mine on the coffee mug in his car. The necklace I once saw Alyssa wearing that I swore I'd seen in his Amazon orders. I told myself I was being paranoid. That's what they want you to think. Every time I got close to confronting them, something would distract me. A new promotion at work, a vacation, a family event. They kept me busy. They kept me just happy enough. But I'm not stupid. And I'm not weak. So I started planning. I started collecting voice memos of suspicious phone calls, screenshots of overlapping lies, GPS history, browser history, shared location timestamps. I created a folder named Taxes in my Google Drive. That's where I stored everything. Then I waited until the cabin. That goddamn cabin. They didn't know I was going to show up early. They thought I'd be arriving Saturday morning. But I switched my flight. I wanted to surprise Brian for our anniversary. Funny how surprises work both ways. When I walked into that cabin and saw them tangled together on the couch like they owned the place, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I pressed record. Then I left. That video didn't leak by accident. I posted it anonymously on a private Reddit thread titled, "What would you do if your husband slept with your sister?" And let the internet do the rest. It took 12 hours to go viral. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Their faces, their betrayal, and my silence. People begged for an interview. Talk shows reached out. Brands offered sponsorships. But I said nothing. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about attention. It's about the slow unraveling of everything they built on a lie. I didn't just destroy their reputations. I destroyed their future. Because while the internet raged, I was busy emptying joint accounts, selling off shared assets, and forwarding evidence to both of their employers. I knew where it would hurt most. Brian lost his position as CFO at a major firm due to conduct violations. Alyssa, a budding influencer, lost brand deals overnight. I didn't even have to lift a finger after that. They did it to themselves. And the best part? They still don't know the half of it. They don't know that I bought the cabin months earlier under a shell company, that the security cameras were mine, that I'd been setting up that moment for over a year. They think they slipped up, but I gave them the rope. They just hung themselves with it. And now, I live free, not bitter, not angry, just done. That's what real closure looks like. It's not a door slammed shut. It's a door left wide open, while you walk away smiling. After the video went viral, I disappeared for 2 weeks.
No social media. No texts.
No calls. Just me and a quiet little Airbnb in Montana, surrounded by pine trees and the sound of my own heartbeat. People always imagine revenge as an explosion, loud, dramatic, irreversible. But real revenge? It's what comes after the fire. It's the silence, when they realize the world is watching, and you're nowhere to be found. Brian tried to call me.
So did Alyssa.
I didn't answer. I didn't block them either. I let the calls ring. I wanted them to hear that silence. That unspoken message. You did this. Now live in it. Their families reached out. My parents were horrified at them, at me, at the whole scandal. My mom asked if I wanted to talk. I told her not yet. What I didn't tell her was that I'd already lawyered up. That while the world cried for justice on my behalf, I was making moves behind the scenes. I'd filed for divorce before the video ever posted. I already had all the financial records I needed. I already had the prenup clause Brian never thought I'd read. And I had the clause that said infidelity voids the 50-50th split. All I had to do was wait. When I got back to Portland, things were different. I wasn't just Hailey Carter anymore. I was that Hailey. People stared at the grocery store. Some nodded in solidarity. A few asked for selfies. One woman whispered, "You're a damn legend," as she walked by me in Target. I smiled, but I didn't feel like a legend. I felt tired. Not sad. Not angry. Just emptied out. Like I'd poured everything into this plan, and now that it was over, I didn't know what to do with the silence. But silence is where clarity grows. That week, I started therapy. For me, not for him. Not to fix something broken. Just to process everything I had buried over the years. My therapist's name was Marla. She was in her 50s, blunt, soft-eyed, and smarter than I ever gave therapists credit for. "You're not broken," she said in our second session. "You're just used to holding the weight of other people's sins." She wasn't wrong. I started writing again. Journaling. Sketching ideas. One morning, I opened a blank doc and titled it, "The Anatomy of Betrayal." It wasn't for a book. Not yet. It was just for me. A dissection. A map of how things fell apart, so I'd never walk blind into something like that again. But the story didn't end there. Because when you expose liars, they don't just disappear. They panic. They try to rewrite the truth. And someone new stepped in. His name was Malcolm Vance, a podcast host. The kind who lives off viral drama and manipulates it into clickbait content. His show was called Truth Untangled, but there was nothing untangled about it. He released an episode called The Viral Wife, Victim or Villain? And just like that, the narrative shifted. He hinted that maybe I'd known all along. That maybe I'd set them up for clout. That maybe the entire video was staged. I laughed when I first heard it, until I saw how many people believed him. I started getting hate messages, DMs accusing me of being as bad as them. One woman wrote, "You're not a victim. You're a manipulator who used social media to destroy 2 lives." And I realized the game wasn't over. Malcolm had picked his side, and he'd picked wrong. You see, I had stayed silent for a reason, but silence doesn't mean weakness. So I started building again. Not revenge. Strategy. I started listening to every episode Malcolm ever published. I studied his patterns, his language, the way he baited guests, the way he edited interviews. And then, I created an anonymous tip line. I called it Behind the Mic. I let it leak that I was starting a podcast of my own. Something focused on internet ethics and viral accountability. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 former employees of Malcolm's show reaching out. One of them sent me a Dropbox folder. Inside, raw audio files. Unedited conversations. Episodes sliced to frame people in the worst light. One in particular caught my eye. An interview with a woman who accused her boss of harassment. In the final podcast, Malcolm made her seem confused, even dishonest. In the raw audio, she was clear.
Direct. Brave.
He'd manipulated it all. And that was just the beginning. I stared at the audio file for a long time. The raw voice of that woman, brave, broken, and manipulated, echoed in my headphones. Malcolm had taken her pain, twisted it, and broadcasted it to millions, just like he tried to do with mine. But I wasn't her, and I wasn't staying silent anymore. I sent the recordings to 3 independent journalists I trusted. I didn't reveal my identity yet. Just proof. Evidence. A link to the Dropbox folder. One of them responded within an hour. "This is massive. Are you the original source?" I replied, "Not yet. Let's see what he does when the mirror turns." By the next day, #MalcolmVanceLies was trending. Clips from his podcast were being compared to the raw versions. Whole YouTube channels started covering it. People started counting how many times he cut women off, re-edited stories, and erased nuance. And then I went live. Just me, no filter. It was the first time people saw my face since the cabin. I didn't smile. I didn't perform. I simply spoke. I stayed quiet because I thought the truth would be enough. But people like Malcolm, they feed on our silence. They twist it into something ugly. So here I am, speaking, clearly, with receipts. I played one of the manipulated interviews, then the raw version. Then I showed emails between Malcolm and Alyssa, emails that proved their coordinated attempt to flip the story and frame me as a master manipulator seeking fame. I told them about the fake Reddit threads, the paid bots, the smear campaign, and finally I said, I didn't ruin their lives. I gave them the rope. They chose to hang themselves. That live stream hit 9 million views in 24 hours. Malcolm tried to respond. He posted a teary-eyed apology video from his car, saying he'd made mistakes and needed time to reflect. Comments were disabled. Sponsors vanished. Alyssa posted a story that read, "Sometimes we make choices that haunt us forever." And then she vanished too. No more lifestyle videos. No more brand deals. Just silence. Brian tried one last time. He showed up at my building, flowers in hand, eyes pleading. "I lost everything," he said. I looked at him and said, "No, you lost me. Everything else was just consequences." He walked away. And that was it. No dramatic finale. No explosion. Just closure. Real, beautiful, earned closure. I took a job consulting for a nonprofit that helps women document abuse and digital manipulation. I used everything I learned, the folders, the patterns, the patience, and I turned it into a toolkit. I named it Silent Power. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is wait.
And strike.
When it matters. One night, I walked into a bookstore downtown and saw a young girl holding a copy of a printed article, How One Woman Took Down a Podcast Empire. She looked up and recognized me. She didn't ask for a photo. She just said, "Thank you," and walked away. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just my story anymore. It was a blueprint for every woman who's ever been gaslit, silenced, betrayed, or called crazy. We're not crazy. We're calculating. And sometimes we're just getting started.